Welcome, everyone. And I'm so excited to be here with you, Valarie.
I am so grateful to be here with you.
We're about to talk all about revolutionary love and the incredible work that Valarie Kaur does. We'll begin with just a moment of connection with our hearts. So I invite you, wherever you are, to place your hands on your physical heart, if you would like, or anywhere on your body that gives you some care and some tenderness. And take a deep breath in, expanding and lifting up, opening to receive love and exhaling to give love. And you might like to inhale, pushing your hands into your body, receiving, and exhaling, extending your hands and arms out, giving love, receiving, and giving. And thank you for that practice. You can continue that as much as you would like through our conversation. So, Valarie, we are so excited for your Revolutionary Love Tour, aiming to ignite change through the power of love. And so I'd love to know first, like, what was the inspiration for this tour? And what do you hope participants experience as they participate and come?
Oh, Susanna, let me say first that that meditation of receiving and giving, this is what I want the tour to feel like. That exact cadence, may every stop feel like this, with
Mhm.
the energy going back and forth between us. You know, we've been building this movement for revolutionary love to reclaim love as a force for justice, healing, and transformation for the last few years. And we are so inspired by communities of practice all across the country. And we had this year-long listening tour asking them, what do you need to go deeper into your practice? And these are places in all kinds of sectors of society: schools, elementary schools, high schools, colleges, universities, houses of worship, workplaces. I mean, all across the board, folks were using the revolutionary love framework to figure out how to build healthy, resilient, and caring communities. And what we discovered in listening to them was that they felt alone. They
Mm.
felt like how often the forces that be made them feel unserious about power or naive around building a culture based on the love ethic. Even though we've heard spiritual visionaries call for love for centuries, we've heard Bell Hooks, the great Black visionary, say that the love ethic ought to be the foundation of every arena of public life, and we've heard the call to love, but what a challenge it is to put that into practice in a culture that is run on fear and hostility and division and violence. And so what we heard was that people wanted to be connected to each other and connected as part of a movement. And what we also heard is that every election season, as hate violence starts to skyrocket, as we hear such vitriol and breathe it all in, it's so easy to retreat into the hard, small parts of ourselves and react from that trauma. We hate each other, we hate ourselves, we are feeding that culture, running on the fumes of hostility. So what does it mean to practice the world we want, even as we're laboring for it? Can we show up this election season not from the site of our trauma, but from the seat of our deepest wisdom? What if we could respond to everything that comes before us from a place of love, affirming humanity above all? What we do, even the small things, every choice, every breath, every word, co creates culture and shapes what happens next. And so, in a time when it's so easy for people to retreat or to despair, we conceived a year ago of bringing revolutionary love across the country. And you know what? I was inspired by my ancestors.
Mm.
The first teacher of the Sikh faith a half a millennium ago, who awakened in this vision of oneness, which is shared in all of our mystical traditions. He decided that he needed to bring the medicine to the people. He embarked on these legendary udasis, travels in all four cardinal directions, on foot through sweltering summers and cruel winters, and he was accompanied by a Muslim bard, Bhai Mardana. Nanak would sing, Mardana would play, and they would awaken hearts together. And in this time, imagine, 15th century South Asia, a time of caste and conquest and cruelty. They were bringing the medicine to people, the giving and the receiving of love, awakening them to courage. And so I gathered in my home,
Mm,
storytellers, healers, musicians from my community, and we said, what if? What if we walked in our ancestors' footsteps?
mm,
What if we told the stories that contained wisdom with the sacred music that could awaken hearts? What if we asked people to tell their own stories of revolutionary love, connect with their own ancestors, their own communities, their own deep knowing about who we are when all the fear fades away and we can connect to our deepest humanity, that love is our birthright? That is how this tour was born. And I cannot believe I'm speaking to you on the eve of embarking across the country. We are getting on a revolutionary love bus, and we are going to 45 cities all across the United States, big cities, small towns, with our stories and music and wisdom, igniting people's hearts to courageous action, asking, what role do you want to play in this moment in history? And how do you want to labor with love? I am so excited for the community that you have built to
mm,
partake in this, because I feel like the wisdom that you offer in marrying deep internal contemplative practice, yogic practice, wisdom practice with courageous action for liberation, that's it. That's the love revolution, the breathe and the push, the sant and the sapahi, which is the sage and the warrior. And I believe that's precisely the medicine that we all need now.
mm. I have chills thinking about the ancestors, right? Like the
Mm,
Sikhi ancestors doing these movements that you will be doing, that everyone who comes to this tour will be doing along with you. And I'm grateful and excited to be there. I would love to know, especially as you're talking about bringing people together across different walks of life and different experiences, right? From high school to elementary school to office to, nonprofit, all of these different places. We have such different visions. And I feel like now more than ever, especially on the left, we're so divided and so
mm,
angry at one another, even when we're moving towards often the same goals, just with different paths, perhaps. And so I'm wondering if you've anticipated some of the challenges and what ways you're going to, one, address those challenges that you might face, but also that participants are facing in
mm,
this moment.
mm. I'm hearing the words of James Baldwin. Love has never been a popular movement.
Mm,
Love has never been a popular movement. It's never been safe or easy to stand in our shared humanity. And I remind myself of that because there are moments when I post something asking us to see the humanity of all, and the next moment it's a wave of hate, and it's like I'm drinking a thimble of poison.
mm,
And it's from people who I would otherwise consider part of the progressive left movement. This need to stand in our shared dignity is trans-political, transpartisan. I mean, it's deeply political, but it's transpartisan in
mm,
the in that, like, all of us, even those who feel like, yes, I stand for equal rights and justice, how easy it is for us to become what we're fighting against, how easy it is for us to villainize the other side, to call other people monsters. And I know actions can be monstrous. And what I have learned from 20 years in the trenches, sitting with police officers and correctional officers and my own former abusers, people who have killed members of my community, every time I sit with them and I want to hate them, I wait for their story and I see their wound. And I've come to understand that there are no such thing as monsters in this world. Only human beings who are wounded, who act out of their fear or insecurity or rage. That doesn't make them any less dangerous, but once we see their wound, they lose their power over us. And we become smarter about who we want to be in their presence. We can ask ourselves, how do we change the cultures and the systems and the infrastructures and the policies that drive that behavior? How do we create spaces where we can come together in humanity to hear each other's stories so that they might start to wonder about us too, start to see our wound, start to engage in a process of deep listening. Deep listening is an act of surrender. We risk being changed by what we hear. That is courageous for anyone to be called into. And so there have been plenty of moments where people who I'd want to be by my side are like, I'm not ready for love. I'm ready for war. I mean, that's literally the messages I get.
Mm.
And I drink that thimble of poison, and I used to collapse in it. But you know what? In the last year, Susanna, I realized that I had to go deeper in my internal wisdom practices in order to build the antibodies, the antidote in my body before I drink that, before I open my phone and take in the hate. I went back to the practice that is very dear in the Sikh tradition, to wake in the Amrit Vela, to wake at the pre-dawn hour, and to breathe with the sea and the sky and the stars and the song prayers. We listen to Japji Sab in the morning. And if I do that, if I can breathe and open and remember the deep connection between myself and you and all others, all the way up to the stars, and rest in that place of wisdom inside of me, that place of love inside of me, then I can open up the phone and get the
Mm.
30 death threats in a row or whatever it is, and be able to respond not from my fear, but to see the wound that's driving us all.
Mm.
That's a lot to ask us right now in the selection season. We can't do this kind of work alone. There are so many opponents right now, and we need opponents. I don't use the word enemy. An
Mm.
enemy is a fixed and permanent identity, but an opponent is someone whose words, actions, or ideas oppose yours. We always have opponents.
Mm.
Just saying that they're opponents and not enemies means that they might switch into a different category in this lifetime. They might not, but just saying it is an affirmation of their humanity. And it could be that this election season, there are people we can't engage, opponents we can't talk to, because we are just trying to survive, tend to our grief and rage, and get out the vote and do whatever we can to keep our people safe. That's very real for so many of us when hate crimes are so high. And calling them opponents means that you're remembering that come inauguration day, all those people who voted against you are still going to be here. They're still down the street. We still have to find a way to live together, to
Mm.
disagree and to live together, to keep our people safe, and advocate for collective liberation, and hold up a vision that leaves no one behind, and not even those we consider our opponents. That's the sacred task we're asked to enter into. This is why I believe that revolutionary love is the call of our times. It is knowing that the only way we birth the world to come is through a shift in culture and consciousness, a way of being, a way of seeing that leaves no one outside our circle of care. So we are bringing this medicine on the bus. And
Yes.
every place we go, asking people to drop, to slow down, to get still, to breathe, to drop into their bodies, to their shared humanity, to listen to these stories that transport our moral imaginations, and then ask ourselves, when has an act of love changed everything for me and for my people? And what if these acts of love weren't aberrations? What if they were just who we were as a society, as a human race? What is my role in making revolutionary love a way of being for
Mm.
everyone around me, so that I'm changing the world from the inside out? I'm practicing the world I want in the space between us. That's what we're doing each night. And then we're giving people tools to say, okay, it just begins now. We don't just inspire and leave. Now you have the tools
Mm.
to take this back into your homes, your schools, your communities, and say, let's build, let's practice, let's build. It's not a 4-year campaign, it's a 40-year vision to transform this country and this world.
It's so powerful. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, many examples that we might point to, like Thich Nhat Hanh, or, the Dalai Lama, or Reverend Martin Luther King, or Arundhati Roy in India, like examples of love and of uplift. And sometimes we can point and say, oh, that person embodies, divine love or revolutionary love. But we all have that person within us. And I really appreciate what you're doing, is like bringing it home, bringing it to the people, kind of like the freedom rides, and the
Mm.
buses that would go in order to bring civil rights and racial justice across the South. We need that. We need
Yes.
that just as much now as we did then, in a different way. So thank you for reminding us of who we are.
I really appreciate what you said because as soon as we put our heroes up on pedestals and we call them saints,
Mm.
is when we drain them of all their power. We're saying that we cannot be like them, but our wisest ancestors taught that that potential lies inside of us, and to unlock it, trust it, believe in it, live it is the greatest meaning of our lives. And so yes, wherever we're going, we're inviting people into to connect with what they already know, and to release our greatest potential and to do it together.
Mm, it's so powerful. I also think when we put our idols up on pedestals, we reduce them to only being a picture of perfection, which oversimplifies. When I was a little bit younger, I read to my kiddo this book about a mixed up cat. And the cat was really adventurous and also kind of cheeky and problematic, but also really good and ended up helping some firefighters. And that metaphor, that character has helped me and my kiddo through our whole lives, because sometimes when there's an unkind friend, it's like, oh yeah, he's kind of a mixed up cat, right? And then when we're talking about Trump, okay, he's a mixed up cat, right? Like he has a family too. He has people he cares about too. And that idea of we're all mixed up cats, we're all flawed in many ways, and we're all perfect and beautiful as well in other ways is so helpful. I want to ask you actually about your children's book, that you have so many wonderful things kind of being birthed into the world. I feel like that's also just something to celebrate. It's a huge
Thank you.
accomplishment. Um, you wrote a book called World of Wonder, and I read it with Kailash, and he said, wow, this captured the magic that I feel about the world. I love it. Your friend wrote this, and it was really sweet reading it with him.
How old is he?
Kailash is 11.
Oh, that brings me so much joy.
Yes.
That's amazing. Because it's true. I wrote the book as a song for my daughter when
Mm.
she was 2, and she's
Oh.
5 and still singing it. But my son, who's 9,
Mm.
has memorized every word because he sees the deeper wisdom inside of it.
Mm.
The refrain is, people walk by, faces are new, so many colors, points of view. Where have they been? What have they seen? Their stories show me everything. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. We sing that to people who are suffering. We sing that to people who are causing the suffering. We sing that to parts of ourselves that are suffering. You are a part of me I do not yet know. When I wonder, my love can grow. My husband listened to the book and he said, it's basically the 400-page book that you wrote, See No Stranger, boiled down into a nursery rhyme. I said, yes, but it took me 400 pages to get here. It is, and so it makes me so happy that your 11-year-old got it, and here's the book, and
Mm.
it's really revolutionary love for opponents, for others, and for ourselves, but distilled into its simplicity and into its essence. And so it might be a good reminder for grown-ups too. And I don't know if you know this, Susanna, it is the last 2 years with the educators at the Revolutionary Love Project built an early childhood learning hub for parents and educators to take this approach and put revolutionary love into practice in our homes, in our classrooms. And
Mm.
so yes, it is like this intergenerational movement, an invitation that we
Mm.
are offering.
I love that. It's like curiosity and wonder as tools for just building relationships and social change. And as a former teacher, I taught high school and then elementary school for 16 years. I always appreciate having those resource hubs and learning hubs built. And now as a parent, where I can go and like download the tools or the skills or read questions to kind of explore along with whether it's my kiddo or other young people that I'm connecting with. So thank you to you and the team for creating that. Please, folks, get the book and also check out the Learning Hub. It'll all be linked as well. So you also have an amazing new book, right? See No Stranger. If you haven't gotten it, like get it, read it. absorb it, put it into practice. And you have a new book called Sage Warrior for Adults, where you explore the archetypes of the sage warriors as essential for our times. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit on this. It seems like a duality. I don't actually think it is, but of wisdom and courage, and how that shaped your
Mm.
personal journey and how you envision it empowering others.
Well, I want to say that they seem disconnected. I'm just going to hold them up because they just arrived. There's the children's book, and here is Sage Warrior. But really, this reflects where my heart has been the last 3 years. I've
Mm.
been with my children, accompanying them. There's my daughter and I,
Mm.
and this is a Sikh family, so you can see in our karas, our steel bracelets, who we are. So it's a really gorgeous invitation into a diverse world. So I've been with my children and I've been with the ancestors.
Mm.
I've been on a profound journey with the ancestors. It really began at this moment during the pandemic when my son started kindergarten on Zoom, but he couldn't go out to play because the sky was on fire from the wildfires spreading across California. And there was a part of me that was relieved that at least my little brown boy was safe at home, safe from the racial violence that I had documented my whole life. And Susanna, was that moment when all the crises that we're facing right now, crises that are befalling us daily, they crescendoed inside of me. And I knew that I wanted to spend my life laboring for justice, for liberation, in love, but I could feel the fear and despair start to paralyze me. And I realized that I needed to go deeper than I ever had before. I asked myself, how did my ancestors survive apocalyptic times? How did they walk the path of love when the world was on fire? How did they protect their joy? And I went back to the stories that my grandfather used to tell me as a child of the Sant Sipahi, of the sage warriors, and he was an embodiment of it.
Yeah.
He was a poet and he served in World War II. He was
Mm.
proud to have never fired a bullet. He survived the anti-Sikh genocidal violence in 1984, and before that in 1947. I mean, he was someone who showed up and risked himself to save the people around him. He was so courageous, and there was this gorgeous stillness inside of him where the song prayers of our ancestors were always dancing on his lips, like a sprinkler would go off in the backyard and the sunlight would make a rainbow through it, and he would be like, everyone stop, va, wow. He saw the world through the eyes of a sage,
Yeah.
and he had the heart of a warrior. And I thought, oh, perhaps the deeper
Mm.
one lives into their connection and their awe and their love is the reservoir from which one can show up courageously in the
Mm.
world for justice, for liberation. There's a recipe here that perhaps is exactly the wisdom that all of us need right now. All of my people who are so tired in the movement, who are also feeling this despair, also feeling the dread. If we're just endlessly pushing, then and we're not breathing, we'll burn out. You can't just warrior endlessly unless you're grounded in sage practice. And similarly, you can't just disappear and stay on the yoga mat and disappear at their
Right.
mountaintop, right? We're awake now. We realize that all that practice around internal liberation means nothing if we're not showing up um, in action for the people around us and the communities who are suffering. So the love needs revolution, the breathe needs the push, the sage needs the warrior. They are interconnected. And what if the stories of these ancestors capture exactly that path, distills that path for a new time?
Mm.
So I got quiet. I sat by the riverbank and for weeks and months let the stories of the ancestors come to me, reimagine them, reimagine the women in them, at the center of them. And then I grabbed my children. Ananda was 3, Kavi was 7. She was on my hip, he was on holding my hand, and took them all throughout Punjab to the places where these stories took place. 'Cause it's not that long ago, it's a few hundred years ago. And said, this is the tree where Guru Nanak meditated, and this is the river where he disappeared, and this is where. And as that was happening, I was literally, as mother, as activist, had to ask myself, How do I need to tell the stories to my children?
Mm.
What is the wisdom I need to like draw from these stories to feed them, to nourish myself, and then to come back and nourish everyone around me? And that's how this book was born. It's an imaginative retelling of the first Sikh ancestors and their courage, interwoven with a travel log where I'm going and asking these questions. And at the end of every story, I'm offering a meditation, inviting you to find the sovereign space inside of you, the freedom inside of you, to be brave with your grief, to harness your rage, to reimagine, to protect your joy. And because our ancestors believe that wisdom landed in the body through music and song, the book is accompanied with a musical album. So you can literally have the multisensory experience that
Mm.
I had when I was a child. You can hear the story, you can read the story, you can hear the music, you can do the meditation, and all of this is a sweet offering, invitation to you to unlock the depths of the sage in you and the
Mm.
depths of the warrior in you.
Wow. I feel like I've been on a journey now with you and children. That's so beautiful. I just like I can't wait for you to folks to read this, right? And like breathe it in, take it in. I did want to ask you because sometimes people ask me, particularly around some of the cultural aspects of yoga, am I allowed? Am I allowed in? Am I allowed to touch these practices? How do you want me to engage with them in a kind and, honoring and respectful way? And so I want to invite you to talk about, it's an interfaith invitation that you're giving us, right? Grounded in your ancestry and the path that you walk, but also open to others to connect to.
It's such a beautiful question, an important question.
Yeah.
If all of us are kin,
Mm.
then all of our ancestors are available to us when summoned with integrity and respect. And so my offering to you, because I could have written this book just for the Sikh Sangat, but I thought about how Guru Nanak, there was nowhere he did not go. There was no one he did not speak to, and they did not proselytize. Sikhs don't proselytize. The invitation was wherever you are, in whatever body you're in, whatever path you're on, that can be a place to awaken. That can be a place to become a sage and a warrior, exactly where you are. And so, because our ancestors' invitation was so open
Mm.
and like democratically open to all, I thought this medicine too, who are we to do this to it? Can I offer you to hear my ancestors' wisdom if it is done with integrity and with respect? And that's why it's not like a cliff note 20-page pamphlet, it's a journey that I'm inviting you on. Like I'm inviting investment. I'm inviting and my promise to you is that it's going to pay off, that you're entering this completely developed spiritual world that maybe many of you have not experienced before, because it's so hard to find any ways to interact with Sikh wisdom in mainstream culture. Here I'm asking you to come in, and I'm going to hold your hand through it, and there's going to be new words, new vocabulary, because we're not going to water anything down. I'm going to do it with integrity, with respect. And I promise, just like almost like you're traveling, at the beginning it's hard to decipher, and at the end you start to have an experience in your body that when you go deeply into the particular, you touch the universal, and it's the universal inside of you. And so the invitation is, this is true when we're traveling on the road too, to listen for how six sacred spaces and six sacred experiences are mediated in our tradition. For example, when we listen to the sacred music, we
Mm.
cover our heads, we slip off our shoes. Like, we invite you still to engage in a kind of respect in
Mm.
approaching the wisdom, and then say, it's all yours. Whatever lands in your heart is activating wisdom inside of you, that is already inside of you, because this is just the heart of all the wisdom traditions of all of our ancestors.
Mm.
Love is the center of it all. And especially the mystical heart of all of our religious traditions, the vision of oneness and the love that inspires is it. It's it. It's our greatest inheritance, and that's true for every single one of us.
I love that you're giving us this pathway. We can come on the Revolutionary Love Tour and then get the tools, but also continue with World of Wonder, with Sage Warrior, and really allow like the rest of this year into the new year to be supported with these wisdom traditions and tools for change. So thank you. It's so powerful.
That.
Yeah. I do want to ask, particularly because recently for me, and I am someone who, I've been pretty steadfast over these years with like moving for justice, taking steps, coming back to practice, but perhaps it's getting older, I'm not sure, but I've had moments like weeks where I'm in the despair, I'm in the grief, I'm overwhelmed, and I can't work at the same, capacity or fervor that I once did. And so I'm wondering, how do you maintain your own wellness and grounding? And you talked a little bit about going into your practices, but how can others do the same while staying active in this revolutionary work for revolutionary love and justice?
This is where I return to the wisdom of the midwife.
Mm,
Breathe, push, breathe, then push. There's a kind of rhythm, a kind of cadence to
mm,
sustain ourselves in any long labor. The labor of raising a family or building a movement or rebirthing a nation. Our culture tells us that we have to be pushing nonstop in order to make a difference or in order to be enough, to be worthy. But we know that that is a lie, that it takes away our birthright, our right to be able to access joy and freedom and pleasure right here, right now, and just being alive. I know that I can access those things if I am breathing every day. Every day I need to breathe. So you heard in the morning, I can, if, when I, my deepest breaths is if I can wake up pre-dawn. A lot of mornings I can't. The children are on top of me. They have a fever. I have a Zoom in 2 minutes. I haven't brushed my teeth. I mean, right? But
yeah.
it's like I go outside for 2 seconds and lift my gaze to the sun, close my eyes, and just feel like the warmth of like sovereign space. Can I activate the sovereign space inside of me? Can I breathe? Okay, now I can push. So there's breathing and pushing in the course of a day. But when I'm hearing you, I'm hearing like, what if it's weeks? I find that my life goes in cycles. That I
Mm,
need to be, I'm in like a larger breathe. Like right now, I'm in a larger push cycle. But I'm already designing on the other side of this, November, December, my loves. We are not traveling as a family. We're gonna be cozy. We're gonna be warm. We're
mm,
gonna we're gonna be in a breathe cycle. Because
mm,
who knows? Maybe come January and inauguration depends. We might be in another push. Like I need to be aware of where I am in my life's cycles in any given in any given day, in
mm,
any given season, and then in the broader context of my life. And between us, I'm even thinking about I've spent 3 years put you all these beautiful things. It doesn't they come at a cost, right? Labor is real and hard, and how many times like I wanted to be picking up my daughter from her first day at kindergarten instead of doing that podcast. Like there are real trade-offs
mm.
in when you're in a push stretch. And I've spent 3 years, pushing out these books and these resources and this tour. And I'm like, ooh, what does it look like for the next 3 years to
Mm.
like just support all this work in the world, let it water, let it move before I just jump into the next creation. Like, can I be enjoying this beautiful life? Can I be practicing what I'm inviting everyone else to do? Right? Is to is to breathe before the push and then breathe again.
Thank you so much. And just hearing like it's true, especially for those of us that are holding these big tensions or conversations or spiritual leadership, which is really everyone, right? Listening to this, we're all holding something, is how do we breathe ourselves? How do we care for
Yeah.
ourselves? And
And,
so with
and
that, unrelated to your work, right? Like, and I know maybe this is like a false dichotomy because everything is connected when it's love, right? But something just completely tangential. What brings you joy? What's something that's brought
Oh,
you
that is so connected.
I
That is so connected.
know.
Um, right, because I notice that it's very hard for me to access joy if I'm not breathing, if I'm not in a
Mm,
breathe cycle, in a breathe moment. And the thing about joy is that you cannot force it. You cannot be like, I'm going to feel joy right now. You can only create the conditions to welcome it in. And
mm,
if I'm breathing, if I'm like slowing it down, putting on the music, I mean, after I remember one horrific election night, um, I felt absolutely breathless. And my son was like, dance time, mommy? Like, dance time on a night like this? Did you see the world has just ended? But my husband's like, your rules, you said dance time every night. So we put on the music, and in the beginning, I was so miserable, right? I don't want to feel joy. I can't make myself feel joy right now. I'm like, I was like a zombie. And then it was like, baby, you're a firework. And I was like, throw me up, mommy. And I throw him up, and he's laughing, and then I'm laughing, and then he's in joy, and I'm experiencing joy on a night as dark as this. Like,
mm,
and the feeling, like, the world doesn't give it to you, right? The feeling is that it comes up like an energy from the earth up into your body. It is electric, it is charged, it is, hope is a feeling that waxes and wanes. Sometimes I feel so hopeful, it's like a bright luminous moon, and sometimes I don't feel any hope at all. It's a sliver or not there at all, and that's okay. I've learned that's okay. Some nights,
mm,
some days, some seasons I feel hopeless. What matters is the work my hands do.
mm,
And if I can access joy in my body at being alive, at being in the labor, then I can keep going. I'm like, okay, the next morning we organized the call to do the thing. It was like joy gives us the energy for the long labor. Joy reminds us of everything that's good and beautiful and worth fighting for. And so to answer your question, it's like it's usually it's usually these days, it's usually with my children.
mm,
It's or with my sisters. We get
mm.
together, right? Turn up the bhangra, dance, dance with our children, dance with each other, dance until your skin glistens. Like our ancestors gave us those tools too, like
Mm,
those beats, no matter what.
mm,
Be you're alive, you're alive, you're alive. And somehow that moves the grief, that moves the rage, that gets us out of stuckness. Joy is magical. It's like it's a secret ingredient in any alchemy to
mm,
transform a thing. And when you're stuck, you really don't want it. You don't feel it. You don't think anything. And then that's the effort is to create the conditions to let it come. That's why the breathe is really really helpful. Okay, I'm gonna go for a walk. Fine, I'm gonna breathe. Okay, I'm gonna put on the song. I'm gonna breathe. Before you know it, you start.
I love this. And it reminds me of how everything really is energy, right? Whether it's the drums or the poetry
Mm.
or the breathing, it's all energy moving. And I love that you've given us this so many vehicles for the multi-sensory experience in the Revolutionary Love Tour and Sage Warrior and the poetry of the children's book, World of Wonder.
Mm.
So thank you. Thank you so much for all that you've been breathing and pushing into the world. And as we come to a close, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Oh, my loves. I believe we're living in an era of transition.
Mm,
On the birthing table, transition is the most painful and dangerous stage. It feels like dying, and yet it is the stage that precedes the birth of the new. I don't know if I will live to see the birth of a multiracial democracy where we are all safe and free. I don't know if I will live to see the birth of a global community that knows how to live sustainably with the earth and with each other. I know those things are necessary, essential if we are to last. I want them more than with every fiber of my being. And I have to understand that my ancestors labored for me and did not live to see the freedoms I have or the freedoms my daughter has. All four grandparents died before my children were born. Like they didn't live to see it. So too I may not live to see it. But to have faithfulness to the labor the way that they did. I want to labor my whole life in such a way that is not just a means to an end, but an end in itself. And when I'm showing up to the labor with love, with breath, with joy,
mm,
then it is the most meaningful way to be alive. I want everyone to be able to access
Mm.
that feeling, that awakeness, that gratitude of being alive, no matter what we're thrown into, no matter how dark, no matter how difficult, we get to be here now together in the dark, laboring, and that is enough.
Mm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valarie. And invitation for folks to go to the links that I'll have to join the Revolutionary Love Tour, to get Sage Warrior, to do these practices and explore a world of wonder. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm going to say one more thing. You can keep it or not.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
every every single tour stop on the Revolutionary Love bus tour is free and open to all. We
Yes.
worked very hard to make sure that happened. Our ancestors did not charge, did not say some people can come and others can't. It was open to all. And so we're inviting people to come and bring your friends, bring your family, bring your children, bring your opponents. Like,
Mm.
let yourself be surprised by the magic that might happen when we decide to come together, deeply human above all. The invitation is for all of us. I can't wait to see you there.
Cannot wait to be there. And I hope to see a lot of you there too, listeners. Hmm.